Hello, and welcome to another Sports Score Sheet podcast. I'm here with Rob McQuown from Baseball Perspective. How are you today, Rob?
Hey Jeff, doing all right, and it's weather's improving here. Everything's going great.
That's good. And then, yeah, it's getting to be baseball weather in some parts of the
Definitely,
country, huh?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, Baseball Perspective is a site that's been around for a couple decades now. Kind of started off more as a site for writing about regular baseball, and then it's kind of morphed into a combination with at least probably half their stuff dedicated to fantasy now. And how long you been there with them now?
It's about 6 years.
That's a while.
Yeah,
Rob is kind of the guy at BP now that coordinates a lot of content for score sheet players. So seemed like a pretty logical guy to have on. Um, do you want to tell us a little bit about BP?
yeah, definitely. I was in actually it's 7 years now, so I lose track of time. I was inspired by Baseball Prospectus from way back when, and the original, dream team of people that founded it are, still I find fairly amazing in their abilities, and that it was like you say, it's primarily designed to provide advanced stats on regular baseball and insights based on those stats. And we definitely still do that. And we, have premium subscriptions for people to read all about the baseball stuff and the advanced new stats. That probably the best example of this is the stat that sort of revolutionized pitching um, analysis or pitching metrics in the past few years, DRA, deserved run average, and that replaced the fair run average we had before, which nobody could really understand. So we were very happy to get that, and DRA has been a resounding success with, you know, we wholly recommend you read some of the, in-depth articles on the statistical modeling that Jonathan Judge used and others to, create and refine that. So that would be one example of the sort of
And,
cutting edge stuff that Baseball Prospectus does. And then we did move into a lot of fantasy sports, before I joined. And then, since the time I've been there, we've, done some good analysis almost exclusively from the writers, except for myself, in regular fantasy sports. But I wrote a few things on Score Sheet, and there's some other people like editor Brett Sayre is plays Score Sheet avidly now and writes on it, and we have other authors that are getting into Score Sheet baseball, and it's definitely a good fit because it's so statistically oriented.
because you got those three guys that still do a score sheet podcast for Baseball Perspectives, the three true outcomes, I think they call it.
Absolutely, they're ex BP, full-time staffers, if you will. They're not writing for Baseball Prospectus, but they definitely do that podcast. They keep it up regularly, and that also is, a great resource for score sheet players.
Right. I mean, one reason we've always gotten along well with Baseball Prospectus is because if you write about real baseball, it translates pretty well to score sheet, whereas rotisserie is kind of a whole different animal. Billy Hamilton's a first or second round pick in rotisserie, and in score sheet, he goes where he should, which is kind of like a reserve outfielder type guy.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, go on.
and then you guys have you've always had a lot of free columns that are interesting, but then over the last few years, you've really developed some stuff for Baseball Prospectus subscribers that's specific to score sheet, like a draft aid and a team tracker and all. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, since you mentioned our subscription plans, we have two right now, and one is the premium subscriptions where you can read all the articles and use things like Draft Aid and Team Tracker to their fullest utility. And then we have Super Premium, where in addition to that, you get some, free PDFs of some books, and you also can ask any fantasy-based or score sheet-based questions you want by simply filling out an online form with your question, and you get a personalized answer back within 24 hours. so that people find that useful. That, as you mentioned, we do have score sheet draft date, and that was, a sort of a labor of love for me because, I was playing score sheet. I thought, well, would be easy since you agreed over at score sheet to allow an API to where I could check online to see which players were gone in a given league. I could just read that in, so you can now select your league in a pull down at the top of the score sheet draft aid, and it will, voila, keep track of the players that are available in your league specifically, as opposed to, all the player pool. And
then it gives a hint of, by the way, we at Baseball Prospectus think that of these guys available, if you want a third baseman, we think this is the best one left for score sheet purposes, kind of thing.
Yeah, and Ben Murphy of Three True Outcomes worked for a year probably on developing the statistic we call SS Sim, which compiles all the things a player does, including positional scarcity and defensive range, and actually their expected errors that they're going to make in addition to the defensive range, and compiles it all into a single metric, and playing time. So the people with more playing time generally compile more of the metric. It's sort of, it's not comparable to WARP. It's more comparable to VORP, but it's like VORP for score sheet players, if you will. And you can tell value over replacement player. And as one might expect, that, there's a mammoth difference between Mike Trout and everybody else in this statistic. But, after that, you can, differentiate, whether, hey, would I be better off taking Brian Dozier or Rhys Hoskins? Two completely different players, and SS Sim will give you an example of the ratings on those. They happen to be almost identical in terms of SS Sim, and I'm looking at a leaderboard right now, so I brought them up.
Yeah, now people find that incredibly helpful if they're really stuck as to what to do or they're time challenged. It's just one of those things that can save you a lot of time, or it can help you decide if you're about to make a boneheaded move, like I do. Well, so you've been staring at stats a lot. Do you have any players that, Mike Trout, I think we've all heard of him, but, maybe a guy that you think somebody might be thinking in the back of their mind, oh, I've heard of him, I don't know if I'll take him, that you think would be worth a flyer on or might go higher than expected?
Oh, boy. I have a co-manager in several leagues, Brett Sayre, who's editor at Baseball Prospectus, and one of his pet players is Gregory Polanco, who's so far had a pretty miserable major league career, but Brett's holding out hope for good reasons, and there's smart reasons as to why he's going to have a breakout 2018. So that's sort of one piece of advice. And I just participated in this mock draft, and I think I do like Addison Russell of the Cubs. He may not turn into a great hitter, but with his advanced range at shortstop, even if he's a good or very good hitter, he is going to be very valuable and a long-standing member of a championship team. So I'd say those are a couple. With pitchers, it's kind of anybody's guess. I'd say I went against the advice I'm about to give. That advice is, with the humidor being in the news, obviously Arizona pitchers are kind of all went up in value since the humidor is supposed to reduce the home runs at Chase Field by 35% ish. So that's going to obviously
trade for Greinke.
Yeah, and my advice is that, and then I traded away Greinke. So who knows?
I don't understand the humidor. For years they've been saying baseball fans buy tickets to see home runs, and then Arizona's on purpose trying to cut the number of home runs down by, like you said, a rather large amount they're predicting.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess the pitchers on Arizona have pull with the front office or something. But
I think the thing with that is, I have an opinion on that. I think the thing with that is that, teams definitely are working hard to preserve their pitchers, and it really does take a toll, giving up that many more homers. The game's last longer. The pitchers are in the games longer. They get more wear and tear.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, the Angels and a few other teams, but the Angels seem to be getting the biggest tank, are talking about a six-man rotation,
Yeah.
which, you know, in the past when they tried that, the number one and two starters on a team would complain because they want to start 33 times, try to get 20 wins so they can get a $25 million contract.
Definitely.
And if you have a six-man rotation, it's pretty hard to start more than 25 times. So we'll see how. Maybe the Angels don't have any pitchers that are in line for a $25 million contract anyhow.
This is true.
Yeah, probably not.
Unless Ohtani. But
yeah, we'll see. I guess I'm in the show me before I believe camp. But I've been proven wrong lots of times before. I really don't think he's going to be the next Babe Ruth, not because he's Japanese, just because there hasn't been a Babe Ruth in 100 years, so odds seem low. But he might be a pretty dang good pitcher.
yeah, we'll see. I'm in the show me camp also, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I think we mentioned draft date. I think one thing that score sheet players used a lot before draft date and definitely still since is the team tracker at Baseball Prospectus. And
during the season, the team track, you mean it's that thing that during the season you can input your team roster or just enter your league name and it gets input, and then it shows you what your guys did that night or the last week or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. So you can do like since last Monday, which is a popular one for score sheet players.
Right.
And see how your team adds up for the past, few days that are going to go into this week's sim. And as you just noted in passing, a few years ago, I added the ability to, with a single click, load your score sheet roster into a team tracker team. So, and you can have as many team tracker teams as you want. So if you're in a 10-team league, in about 10 minutes, you can create 10 teams, load each of them up using the import score sheet roster, and have yourself and all your opponents each in a team on Team Tracker. And at this point in the season, there's forecasts, so you can see the PECOTA forecast for your players, or your opponent's teams, so you can see how you shake out against like your division opponent, division rivals or whatnot. And you can keep re-importing every time, during a draft. You could do it, every day or every week.
It helps you see. You might not quite realize how weak you are in the outfield, and you do that, and you suddenly realize, oh, everybody else is going to hit 80 more home runs than I am. Kind of like the Giants need that tool in their front office. Yeah, it's a frustrating thing to get less home runs out of your whole outfield than one first baseman generally gets. So, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of free stuff on Baseball Prospectus, mostly columns. And then the things we've been talking about the last few minutes, if you subscribe, which I think costs about $6 a month is what it works out to, maybe $7. You get all these extra things, and you get more columns. It's a pretty dang good deal, in short.
Actually, it's even cheaper than that. You can subscribe monthly for $5 a month, or it's about $4 a month if you buy by the year.
So, it's good.
It's even cheaper than you thought.
It's even cheap. You can buy a cup of coffee with your prescription and have it be $7. That's a good deal. And what's the we'll have this up on the video, but what's the URL for the BP site?
At www.baseballprospectus.com.
Yeah, and if you search for Baseball Prospectus, it'll pop up. You guys, like I said, have been around forever. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that of all the baseball websites in the world, you have more ex-BP people now in front offices than in maybe all the other sites put together. You have a lot of ex-BP people that are now in front offices of real major league clubs.
That's true. I worked on the annual. We just published that a month ago. And, rounding up all those people is every year there's more and more that we add to the list. So it's definitely true. And we're proud to say that, ex-BPers featured very prominently in the Houston Astros front office. So
that's for sure.
That's sort of a, feather in our cap, and congrats to them.
Yeah, I think it's just a testament to the quality of writing. And as you said, the last 10 years, kind of just the quality of statistical analysis you guys do. So hopefully the people listening to this, if they haven't done it already, will drift on over to BP and check it out, because I certainly go there a lot.
Well, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. And Rob, thanks for having us with us. I'm sorry. Thanks for being with us today. Kind of said it's been a long week. We're doing all the keepers for all our leagues, and I don't exist very well on 4 hours of sleep, but we're about through it, and hopefully I'm making a little bit of sense anyhow. Speaking of Polanco, by the way, he is sure to have a good year because I'm in a league that only keeps 10 players, and I finally bit the bullet and cut him this year. And so now that I cut him about 10 days ago, he's destined to win the MVP.
Oh, no. Well, thanks for having me, and it's been a pleasure.
Sure. Thanks for talking.